Hi, this is Dutch Thompson with MP3. That stands for Move Past Pain to Performance, and I'm so excited for today's broadcast. Before I get into it, I just want to recommunicate that MP3, what I do is basically in this umbrella, underneath the umbrella of Neuro Athletic Training, which means we look at the brain performance for body performance. We're interested in my field in how is the brain connected to the body in a way that might be either enhancing the body's performance, given the performance of our top athletes, how is it that they can do the extraordinary feats that they are capable of, but also we can look at that through the lens of what might be preventing us from either healing or performing at our best. So everyone else might look at, if you have a knee injury, they might look at the knee. They might examine it really closely, take a lot of x-rays of it, and they might find a bunch of stuff. But it's rare that we ask from a brain perspective, is the brain wired to the knee really well? Is it connected? Does it see the knee? Does it understand knee movement at a high level so that it's capable of really having a very high-performing knee? So really both tools are important. We want to be able to examine the biomechanical question, which is exactly what's happening in that joint and around it. But we also, if we leave out the brain map to that and the brain wiring to that, we're doing a disservice to ourselves, to the athlete. And so people like Lars are extraordinary. Lars is a sports scientist. He's worked with the German national soccer team, with the German Olympic track and field team. I could go on and on and on about this guy's accomplishments. He's also just an extraordinary human being. He's kind, he's humble, and I'm so grateful that he came online today to be a game changer for this program. I do want to say before I bring him on that he's written 4 books that have really laid the foundation for neuroplasticity and neurotraining to explode in Europe. And if you went to see somebody in Europe and said, oh, I'm looking for a neuro athletic trainer, it'd be easier to find there than in America because Lars has helped to build that foundation. So I'm going to bring him on board now. And Lars, welcome. I'm so glad you're with us today. And you are on camera now.
Hi, thank you for being here. Thank you for the invitation. It's really an honor. I like what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So Lars, tell us a little bit. It's such a strange season for all of us right now, just under the pandemic. How are you doing?
Oh, thanks for asking. Me and my family, we're all doing good. So everybody is healthy. We are still positive. And we do a lot of vagus nerve stim to calm down.
Yeah. You said vagus nerve
but we
stim.
Are doing good.
Yeah, that's part of our neurology training. Outstanding. The vagus nerve innervates all of the internal organs, and when we give it the appropriate attention, it can help settle us down. We might get into something like that later if we can talk about that. Such an important part of our brain. Lars, you have a child, about a 2-year-old, is that right?
Yeah, he is close to 2 years. He is 22 months old.
Yeah.
And now in quarantine, and we stay at home. So we are busy. He keeps us busy. He's a good one. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I met you, and I think I met Ula at the same time at a training a couple years ago. So we were in a neurology class under Dr. Eric Cobb, who is an extraordinary teacher. You've seen him there in Europe. He's taught courses. So what I'd like to first kind of start with is you were open to this to begin with. Can you tell us kind of what led you to this field of work?
Yeah, it's an interesting story because I was a competitive athlete, so I joined the national team in track and field, and I always had very, very good teachers. So at one point, I always have been a teacher. So my parents, I do not remember, but my parents taught me. I trained a couple of kids in the backyard when I was 5. So I always into that, hey, I want to train athletes and train sports. So at one point, an athlete of mine was injured in my trainings session. So I'm always responsible for what happens to the athlete. So because I gave him the trainings plan, I gave him the drills to do, the exercises to do, and he gets hurt. So I was wondering, okay, what have I done wrong? Because that wasn't perfect exercise, I thought.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and then after a couple of weeks, he came back and was injured at the same place again. And then I was wondering, okay, everybody was talking, everybody said, hey, he's good again. Everything is okay, structure is healed, so let's go. So, and I'm a pretty good trainer, I think so. Yeah, I started very, very easy, build it up slowly, and get into the structures. And then second injury, same place. And then I was, okay, what did I wrong? What have I done wrong? Yeah. So I started to think about, it was mid 2000, 2005, around 2005. And then there was this new functional training coming up. Yeah. And I dig deeper into that. And on this search, I was deeper into movement. And when you once dig into movement, oh, there's a brain that controls everything.
And I should say here that's basically the titles of your books. One of your books was Training Begins in the Brain.
Yes.
Right. And your latest book that has just been published is Strength Begins in the Brain.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So please continue. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I was wondering, okay, so it's all about movement. Training is about movement. Now, I studied sports science, so it had to be more clear for me. But I figured out, okay, it's all about movement. And then I was going deeper into, sorry for that, I went to how the brain controls movement. And then I found Dr. Eric Kopp. It was 2009. And, he was the first one who gave such a deep insight in how the brain is functioning, how we can apply it. And, yeah, he was answering so many questions since then, so almost a decade I am in. That is because I was not very happy with my training, and that is where it all started.
Yeah. And so I assume you began to see more success with your athletes.
It was unbelievable. So at first I just bought his DVDs, the very, very early ones. He came out 2008 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit strange because, hey, do this, but no deep explanation.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, really? I know it had to do something with central nervous system and with movement controlling systems. So, but not very, very deep, just the grow level of explanation. But I implemented it in his training, and it was fantastic.
Wow.
And then
yeah.
He was teaching 2010, I think, it was in Denmark.
Yeah.
And then first I joined him there. And since then I was 23 times in the US, in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And a couple of times here in Europe. So yeah, that was my story where I came into the neurocentric approach to movement and performance.
Awesome. We started to talk some yesterday as we were preparing for our call about a wrestler and that you'd worked with, a Greek style wrestler, and he, I think you said he got his signature move, but that was both an advantage and a disadvantage. So can you kind of explain how your work with him helped him improve?
Yeah, he called me because he had some technical issues in a special movement. So there was, it was a lifting figure up to the right. So I was wondering, okay, what are the neural demands of that technique for to solve the technique perfect? And so I made a profile of the technique. So it is lifting up to the right, so it's acceleration to the right. And so we figured out, okay, while he is in acceleration to the right, he's not stable. Yeah, there are different kind of reflexes that kick in when you are accelerating, and some when they don't kick in, you are not stable. So we addressed this special reflex. This was a vestibular spinal reflex, just for you to know. Okay. And we addressed it, and then he was able to do this lift. Mm-hmm. And he was so shocked because they worked on it a couple of years.
Yeah.
So he's not bad. He's not a European champion, but then I gave him a couple of things to work to upregulate it, and in his next fight, he won with this technique.
Wow.
Against his most dangerous opponent. It was a nice story. Yeah.
Oh, it's a fantastic story, and I get so excited about hearing stuff like this. And one of the things that Lars and I have been privileged to understand and grow in under Dr. Cobb's teaching is a very precise a way to address and assess the performance of the vestibular system. So this vestibulospinal reflex that Lars is talking about, I don't know if Lars found a particular canal perhaps, but often in our vestibular problems, just to broadly tell someone they have to work on balance is so imprecise. So yes. Lars, can you maybe speak to that? What kind of precision work? I know the language is a little bit tricky for us, but you're doing great. Mm-hmm. Let's tell us a little bit more detail about what you found working with that guy.
Okay, so we have different vestibular organs. So we have the macular organs. They detect linear acceleration, and we have the semicircular canal. They are more in charge with rotational stuff, acceleration. So especially the otoliths. There's a special organ that is for forward, backward, and sideways linear acceleration. And the otolith sends the signals to the lateral vestibular nuclei. From there starts a reflex. Yeah. So he had a bad otolith on the right side. So there were not many. So when he was acceleration to the right, the brain has not much good information what happens. Yeah. And therefore he's less stable, etc. So we upregulated and we just trained the otoliths by having clear visual focus while just linear movement to the right. Yeah. Wow. And so the afferent information from the otolith bombarded the lateral vestibular nuclei, and then one function is, hey, there's a starting point of the VCR reflex, and then the reflex kicked in better, and that solved the problem. So not really solved, but it makes it much better.
Yeah. So depending on your education in the vestibular system, a lot of my colleagues who might be watching understand everything you just said, or most of it. But most of the general population has no clue, and what you just said may sound extraordinarily challenging. Let me assure you, it is not that hard to figure out.
No.
It's about like a chess game. If you've ever played chess, there's some pieces that move. There's not 1,000. There's about 18 on each side. So it's palatable, is what I'm trying to say. It's not this bizarre. You don't have to be a neurosurgeon to get this stuff.
Yeah.
So Lars, again, yesterday when we were chatting, something that I loved that you said was about kids and when they're about to go to school. Can you go into that again?
Yeah, you asked me, hey, what is one of your goals? Where should it go, this neurocentric work? And for me, I was once in a podcast with Dr. Eric Kopp, and we would, somebody asked the same question. So where can it lead to? And I mean, it would be so nice when every child, before it goes to school or even a preschool, will have when we have some kind of neuro profile. Yeah, when we know, hey, this kid has visual issue, so he needs to learn different than the other kids. He couldn't move his eyes, so reading is horrible for him. Yeah, and it doesn't matter how good the system he is in. When his eyes are not able to stabilize and do this, hey, reading is a threat for him, and he will react to it. Right. Yeah. So one thing, it would be so nice if we get more neuro information about our kids before they have to learn something. But maybe, I think so. There's a lot of kids who think they are not able to do stuff, even in sports or something like that, just because one little piece is not functioning well, and we can change it. Yeah. It's trainable. It's a skill, and the skill lives in the brain, and we can train him. And it's not tricky. Yeah. Yeah. But we have to pick it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things I love that Dr. Cobb says is he, being a very highly performing, capable martial artist, he said that learning brain neurology has made him a much more compassionate and empathetic toward other human beings. Mm-hmm. Because now he sees, if he sees somebody who can't perform or maybe a little bit slower picking up a movement, instead of judging that person, his brain goes to, I wonder what part of their neurology isn't connecting quite right. So I think in general that's a really kind way to make us all better human beings. If we see somebody who's imperfect at something, not to judge, but to say they've got a neurological something or other. Not sure what it is, but they're not guilty. They're not a bad human being because that thing's going on with them, or they have
there's a reason for that. Yeah, there's a reason for behavior. Yeah. Even if it's movement or if it's some other kind of behavior. When maybe due to a lack of movement, due to a lack of whatever, you have a frontal lobe issue. So maybe you can't inhibit impulses. And then you shout at people and you're aggressive, but when you just see the output, it thinks, oh, bad guy. He's angry, or no, maybe he had a frontal lobe issue. And we have to upregulate it, and then he can inhibit impulses and control them better, and everything is fine or better. Yeah. And I recognize the same. The more I know about the brain, the more easy and relaxed I am with dealing with people. Yeah. I understand more. Yeah. Especially in movement. Yeah. Hey, when there's a movement issue. Yeah.
So I had something interesting happen for me a few weeks ago. A guy came to see me as a client to get rid of some pain, but over the course of 3 sessions, he made this comment. He said, Dutch, I was struggling with anxiety, and I don't know why, but I don't struggle with it nearly as much because we've done, an elbow circle. So have you seen that happen? Have you seen, for instance, an athlete perhaps who who had other problems get resolved. They came to you
Yes.
because of, there was something bad, but then something else got fixed because of what you did.
Yeah, especially um, the athlete that do neuro work every day. They became sometimes kind of different person. Yeah.
Mhm.
One story was there was a goalkeeper from first division German club, and he used to play brain games with his so memory games, something like that, with his wife, and he always lost, always, not a chance.
Wow.
And after 2 months, he said, "Lars, what happened?
Wow.
Now I win these games,
Wow.
and I not lose every single game." So
Wow. That's
I'm much more
huge.
concentrated. I have better memory and understand the game more. And that was a nice story in regards to what you asked. Have you seen this change? Yes, that was, yeah, per accident.
I love that. So, do you have any idea why? What was it? Do you think there's any particular drill that was making his brain?
And not a particular drill. You can see when you look at the basic activation pattern of our brain. So all the activity goes from the old brain back and up and forward, and all the cool stuff is more on the cortex area, so the new brain areas, and they just get active, more active.
Right.
When you see at the communication between the different brain areas, almost everybody talks to everybody. Yeah. So when you get a neuronal pool more active, everything can change. In this special part, yeah, we did a lot of drills for his. So, you know, the temporal lobe, yeah, and the temporal lobe contains at some point a part of the vestibular. How can I say it? Some kind of vestibular cortices.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so we did a bunch of vestibular drills.
Hmm.
Yeah. And really, really a lot of, uh, wait, at some point, uh, the coordination. I have the German word. I don't have the English word.
Hmm.
Cerebellum.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah,
that
and
works.
a lot of cerebellum drills and upregulating, and the cerebellum talks to almost every other brain area,
Yeah.
and so I think these two, the vestibular work and the cerebellum work, made him, yeah. Yeah, better in memorizing stuff.
Yeah, I was kind of really tuned into what we're talking about the temporal lobe because so much of that, uh, the temporal lobe has to do with memory.
Hmm.
When we see somebody and we either recognize them or we're trying to figure out if we saw them before, there's a lot of memory activation occurring in the temporal lobe. And similarly,
Hmm.
when we smell, the reason that smell is associated with memory is because the receptors or the signals it kind of explode in the temporal lobe that
Yes.
reacquaint us for not when we take a smell and we're like instantly catapulted to that childhood stuffed animal or whatever it was where
Hmm.
that smell is associated with memory because it ties into the temporal lobe like
Yes.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Hmm.
So important. And so, a quote I often will tell my clients to help them begin to digest the importance of all these brain areas. And like Lars said, everything activates everything, but to know what's primarily responsible for any given
Hmm.
tasks, and there's kind of some ways we can activate those
Yeah,
specific
it's
areas,
orderly. Hmm.
is explosive.
Hmm.
So, thank you for that work. If you could, I know everybody loves hearing about the athletes and the work that you're doing with these extraordinary, talented individuals. Can you share about it? Maybe another couple of people you've worked with that have been fun to work with, where you've seen, they've been to 19 specialists and practitioners and nobody can fix them, and all of a sudden they came to the voodoo doctor.
Yeah, in the media, once they called me voodoo guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Now it's fun. Yeah, there's one nice story about a handballer. He was close to his third surgery with his shoulder, and then okay, it was second division. So good guy, yeah, but always injured, always shoulder problems, and he came to me because, yeah, he tried everything, yeah, and then it was interesting. So he quitted the surgery and he was fantastic. He did about 1 hour work every day. He was very passionate because he was seeing directly positive results. After 2 years, next year he was in the Division 1, and the second year he joined the national team.
Wow.
That was an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can read it here in the. They wrote a lot of articles about it, and he pushed the neurocentric approach in the media because his story is fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was in TV shows with that. Because from almost out of the game to national team player, and that was a fantastic story.
Yeah.
But he did his job.
Can you tell us his name or it's fun?
Bastian Rorschach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you say what happened? I mean, of course, I'll be a little playful with this. I'm sure you went in and worked on his shoulder and you manipulated it, and you.
I don't even touched it.
Right. So, what did you do? What happened?
It was a muscle tone issue. So in his case, it was more focused on brain stem issues.
Crazy.
A
lot of that. Wow.
A lot of movement control and a lot of muscle tones, reflexive muscle tones setups due to the brainstem, especially to the formatio reticularis, PMF in English. Yeah, formatio reticularis.
It's the hardest word I've ever heard. I can barely say it.
Contomedullary reticular formation. That's it.
Perfect.
We did couple different ways to address it. So every single way was positive. So we bombarded it with the cranial nerves. We worked on top-down approaches, bottom-up approaches. So different stuff to upregulate this brainstem area.
So sometimes I'll describe what we do, like brain fuseology. Like if you go into your house or your condo and the switch doesn't work and the toaster doesn't come on, or there's some other appliance that you can't get to work, you don't think I've got to go change my light bulb. You think there's some fuse that's involved. And so while everybody else has looked at his shoulder and he's had x-rays, even some advice to perhaps get surgery, you went and did different things, and you said basically, I think all of the fuses made a difference.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so just kind of a guesstimate, how many fuses that are not in the shoulder might there be, theoretically?
What do you mean exactly, fuses? Sorry.
Yeah. So cranial nerves. How many brain things that are not here? They're not in this area. How many brain wires might be connected?
Oh, there could be so many. Everything that stabilizes the head and neck, because all the muscles join, attach here, and join towards the shoulder blade. Yeah. So there could be vestibular reflexes, like the vestibulo-colic reflex. Yeah.
Okay.
Lives, starts in the medial vestibular nuclei that lives in that area. Yeah. So you can address with head rotation. You can address with different vestibular drills combined. In his case, we did a lot of top-down. So we activated the parietal lobe and the frontal lobe. Those both areas have protections directly in the frontomedullary reticular formation.
That's the brainstem for those of you who may not know.
Yeah, that is the netwise structure that has a lot to do with posture and muscle tone and movement stability. So when the muscles around the chest and the back are not appropriate, the muscle tone. When you are a handballer and you throw a couple of 100 times a day, it has costs. Yeah, so you have a mechanical disadvantage when one muscle pulls more than the other, etc., etc. So I think I remember that going top down was the best approach for him.
Yeah.
But you can activate the brainstem with everything that fires into it.
Yeah. One of the things that I'll just go through kind of a couple of ideas here, but one of the things we learn in Z Health, because of their proximity to each other in the brain, is that sensation can sometimes improve muscle tone, can sometimes improve functionality. So before using a muscle, sensation before motor is the concept. Was that important for this individual?
Yeah, he also had some sensational deficits because he already had 2 surgeries. So, and maybe from there, maybe due to another injury, there was a lack of sensory input also.
That's so loaded.
But we addressed it later on.
Yeah.
That was not the first thing we addressed. Yeah, but it's important, absolutely. Yeah,
so that's there's all these little like morsels of such important things that you're saying, and I just want to go into it a little bit, but surgery, post-surgery recovery, often up until about 5 years ago, there was no type of sensory rehab post-surgery, which is crazy. There's an incision that's cut skin, it's cut nerves, and to not do sensory retraining after surgery is a big deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really big deal. You can start right after the surgery to enhance sensory input here.
Yeah.
There's a nice story if you want to hear about the luge Olympic champion Tatjana Hüfner.
Yeah, please tell.
Directly pre-season, so I think she got an Achilles tendon. Yeah, and so 2 months later, the World Cup was starting. So not a good time to have such a huge injury. What we did, so after the surgery, directly in the hospital, we started doing sensory rehab. We starting working on her start position and did isometrics. We did some specific strength training in the bed. Yeah, and it was funny because she made it to the World Cup, and the third World Cup she was on the podium again.
Wow.
Yeah. In her case, because luge, I don't know if anybody in the US knows what luge is.
I'm afraid not. No, I've got a bit of an idea myself, but most of us have no clue.
Yeah, so they start with the arms.
Yeah.
So it was not too bad to have a leg injury, but you have to move, and you have to, the weight training, the gym training, everything was canceled.
Wow.
And it was just 8 weeks to go. Yeah, so you can do a lot of stuff, but one important part was directly train sensory.
Wow.
That the brain doesn't lose, because there's a time after an injury which should be healed. Yeah, and then you get no afferent input to your brain.
Yeah.
But the brain needs information. Where is my ankle?
So important.
So things change. Yeah, and to remember, hey, can you feel it? Can you feel it? Yeah, the connection did not get lost so much.
Yeah. Can you say some of the sensations that we're training?
That we did?
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of little vibration, and a lot of where they had to discriminate a lot. So 2 point. So can you feel 2 points instead of 1 point? Yeah, so that she has really focus on what's going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this gets into
light touch. So something that you would be very concentrated to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's all these principles that are they're like gravity. These are rules of the brain, and one of the rules is that our brains tend to be reluctant to change. All of us have brains that are a little on the lazy side, and without this sort of focus, very intentional, very hard. If it's not hard, we're probably not doing good neuroplastic work. So I love what Lars is saying here, that she had to focus really hard on am I getting 2 kind of pricks in my skin, or is it 1? How far apart?
It was swollen.
Pardon? Yeah.
It was swollen. It was very hard.
Wow.
Yeah, but just to focus and to pay attention is a huge thing for neuroplastic change, and just to get the information to the brain, because the thalamus, he stands there and says, okay, when you focus, it plays a big deal in any sort of training.
Please say more about that.
Not just sensory.
Yeah, say some more about that. Play is a really important part of training.
So when you are not focused, when you are not detailed, when you are not really into what you are doing, you tell the brain it's not important. Yeah. So then, please don't show up.
Yeah.
Show up when you want to train and when you want to get better. Yeah. Sometimes you have to stop a session when he's not able to concentrate anymore. Yeah, it's not about just physics. This is a huge part. But if you are not focused, the training session is not as good as it could be in regards to neuroplastic adaptation towards the stimulus you applied.
Yeah. So watching the athlete, making sure that they're in it, making sure that they're perhaps having a degree of fun at the same time is important.
Yeah, and you as a coach, you have to, you can some kind of, with your coaching skills, you can do it for them. Yeah. And hey, have you felt it? Please go in. How was it? Was it a good rep? Was it a bad rep? Normally, they decide, yeah, when the time was fast, they think it was a good race, a good sprint. And no, it was horrible. It was just fast.
Yeah.
But technique-wise, nah, yeah. So the basic was okay, but you know what I mean. So as a coach, you are in response when you know the rules of the brain. Um, I was able to meet so many awesome coach in the Olympic Games, etc., etc. And even if they don't know it, they did the basic right.
Yeah.
Paying the athlete or letting the athlete pay attention to what is important.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And unbelievable good coaches. Yeah. Without knowing that they did pretty good neuro stuff.
Right. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And so, but it's a good skill to learn, because pretty often they just do the training.
Yeah.
And not much focus. I don't want to talk about fitness in any way, but it's horrible often. But even in elite sports.
Even elite sports, what again?
Even in elite sports, sometimes there's not enough elite coaching.
I see. I agree, of course. Let's talk a little bit about the books that you've written. So excited for that discipline. I know that's been challenging to write now for your fourth book, but tell us a little bit about what that's been like.
Yeah, at some point, we recognize it is important for people to have something to point to. And so writing books is a good thing to do that. And it is pretty big here in Europe, especially in Germany. So, and it came down to the fitness world. As Doc started, normally, you know it, there were a lot of elite trainers, from all over the country or all over Europe and from Australia. And so very special trainers joined it. But when it gets brighter, more and more people came out of the fitness world, and because it's such a great stuff. And everyone here in Europe, it's they want to promote stuff. So because we are so deep and long into it, deep maybe, but long into it, we thought, okay, let's write a book first because to hold up a high quality.
Right.
Yeah. So not just, hey, this is neuro stuff, do whatever. Therefore you have to know more what's going on here. Yeah. So we wanted to make the first in regards to safe quality.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great vision.
And it's important.
Yeah.
The second thing is, or the third thing is, it is just important that people have something to read. Yeah. So that they can, and even in the community, people can follow things more easy than to develop on their own. Because it's so complicated when you really, really go deep into it. And I'm a practical guy. For me, it's easy to write, that is how you can train it. That is involved into it. So do this first, do this second, do this first. And the books are built up this way.
Wow.
So, and it's a good starting point to get deeper into, what is neuro stuff? So when you have something you can buy and you can just switch through the pages, it makes things more easily and more acceptable. It is much more acceptable when it's yeah, it's so strange,
Right.
but people like books.
And you said that that China is licensed
By the
to
license. Yeah.
fantastic, and Russia.
That is what I heard
Okay.
from our publisher. Yes.
Yes. And any idea on when we can get our hands on that in America?
I hope as soon as possible. Right now, everything is strange. Yeah,
Right.
because because of the virus,
Yeah.
it's not so easy to publish. Yeah, because Amazon can't deliver, and it's crazy what's going on right now.
Yeah.
But I hope that it will be out soon.
Mm.
Yeah. The second book about interoception, there's a license sold, I think, in the UK.
Okay.
So that will come out pretty soon.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah. So it's about interoception. Yeah, it's not about. It's more about stress management, etc., etc., digestive issues, and something like that.
Yeah.
And much of the vagus nerve. But the training books will come a little bit later. I don't know why.
Okay. Since you brought that up, I did want to come back around and discuss a little bit more the vagus nerve. So Lars has just described the interoception, which is one of the very important things that we want to make sure is working well in our body for our brain to be well connected to our internal structures. And there's all kinds of ways that we want to make sure that your brain feels good about the autonomic functions, about the beating of the heart, the respiration and digestion. All these things have more to do with interoception. And really importantly right now, these things are very closely related to how we make it through threat. How do we navigate our way when the world changes, when crisis might hit, when there's a COVID-19 going around? How does interoception impact us? And what I loved about what Lars said right early on in our conversation is they're doing some vagus nerve stimulation in his own family to make sure they're okay. So Lars, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, when you can't predict the future anymore, because we can't. It is so hugely stress related. Yeah, people are afraid. Yeah. We don't know because it's such a strange situation. We never had it, and hopefully we'll never get it again. Mm. Yeah, but it's threatening. And so you are completely stressed. Some people more, some are not. But stress alters a lot of function in the body, a lot of functioning, beginning with your breath, with your digestive system, with your blood pressure, etc., etc. So when you know about that, and you know right now there's a time where I'm highly stressed because of that situation, there's a chance to counteract it. And you can counteract to when you upregulate of everything that is parasympathetic in nature. Yeah, so all the things that make the brain, that uses the brain to calm you down. Yeah, and a lot of things when you, how can I describe it? A lot of interoceptive information is parasympathetic in nature or just functions in parasympathetic activities. So when you address the area that are responsible for processing interoceptive information, the likelihood that you are more relaxed and resilient to what's going on is much, much higher. And you can do active things. Everybody knows that when I focus on my breathing, when I exhale a little bit longer than I'm inhaling, I feel better most of the time. Yeah. So, and it's so easy. It's not complicated. You don't have to massage your stomach or your organs. You have to breathe. You can vibrate your ear there. So the vagus nerve is one of the best ways to address these areas that are in charge for regulating sympathetic or parasympathetic activities.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of things you can do. Yeah, everywhere where the vagus nerve is, you can address him. He has so many different areas. So he goes to the tongue, he goes to the ear, he goes to the throat, lungs, organs. So breathing, tongue work, etc. Head rubs. There's so many things, and they are easy.
Yeah.
And at the end, you get better regulation you get a better stress management, say it that way.
Yeah, yeah. And what I'm always coaching people toward is the idea of resilience. So when I was younger, I used to have the idea, the naive idea that I wanted to be happy in life, that my goal should be to be happy. And while that's good and I want to be happy, it's more important to survive and thrive through life, which has its challenges. It's more important that we have a very keen awareness of and ability to be resilient. So being able to mitigate the activation of the vagus nerve, and Lars is describing that. There's entire books that have been written about the vagus nerve, but everything he just said in ways to activate that by vibrating your ear, by rubbing your head, by even humming, has been useful for many people. So in getting to kind of calm down and feel, it's a brain hack, basically. We can feel super stressed because we're being hacked. We're being hacked by the media, by the news. We just don't know it. We don't call it a hack. But ultimately, if we turn on the news and it's bad, we're kind of hacking ourselves. So we need a way to brain hack to get back to this idea of great resilience, of great toughness. We are tough, strong people, human beings. Lars, can you go into the vagus nerve stem with the ear vibration? Can you talk a little bit more about that, because it's so fascinating?
I think one of the most powerful drills to activate the vagus nerve is the vagus nerve runs right here. I just show it right here into the ear.
Yep.
So when you have an electric Zahnbürste, heißt das toothbrush?
Yep.
Yeah. So the small ones for traveling.
A small electric toothbrush, like for traveling.
Yeah. So when you vibrate this area, you stimulate.
Yep. So you're
mechanically.
Right there.
The vagus nerve. Yeah. And you can test it. You do some deep breathing, vibrate your ear, and do it again. Yep. Breathing is much more easy. Yep. It is so fantastic tool.
Yep.
And there is a lot of studies out that show that when you do it continuous over weeks for 2 minutes a day, the inflammatory, so the vagus nerves is also responsible for anti-inflammatory information. So so they checked, hey, how much when I talk 1 hour English, I get lost.
Wow, I've been so impressed. Whenever I talk to people in Europe, I'm embarrassed because, frankly, I speak one language decently, and you probably speak 5. How many languages are you pretty familiar with?
Oh no, just 2.
Just 2.
There's a little bit Spain, but not so much.
Yeah, but still, so 2 complex languages. You're beating me by a long shot, man. You're doing fantastic. And our time is almost up, so I don't have to make you go much further.
Yeah, I think so. When you have any kind of gut a state
Inflammation.
of gut is inflamed and etc. And you do this kind of work, vibrating the ear, the inflammation goes down.
Yeah.
There are fantastic studies out there just vibrating the ear
Yeah.
to get this kind of results,
Yeah.
and you will be you get more activity in very very interesting brain areas that are in charge of emotional control, regulating the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So they are in charge of homeostatic environment, and it's a big deal.
So are you
And it's sometimes it is so easy, like vibrating the ear. Yeah.
are you saying that if I'm lacking some skill on the field as an athlete, that sometimes if I just vibrate my ear, that I could get better?
For sure. Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love
No.
it.
When you look at the different part of the insula, the insula is there is where interoception lives,
Mm.
and it has different compartments. And in the insula lives the vestibular association cortices. So one part of the vestibular system lives there. So when you vibrate the ear, maybe you're much more stable. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's just about blood flow in a very, very, very important brain area.
Mhm.
Yeah. And with this activity, every function of this area gets better. Yeah. So with my athlete, a big deal. Everybody makes some kind of interoceptive training. Always, always. So the brain, before you do any kind of activity, it asks, "Hey, how is the autonomic state for the next event?"
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah,
very
and
powerful. Yeah.
yeah. So, and when they said, "I really have no idea. I have not good information," it will be added to the movement plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to press just a couple minutes further.
Hmm.
That you've heard this phrase. I'm sure we all have. I'd like you to respond to it. But no pain, no gain.
Yeah, it's a big, to have a good work ethic is important for surviving the sports world, to get the skills in, to get the reps in. So what they mean is you have to be tough to get the training, but it should be high quality. And when you do very, very, very good training, I accept it very hard to train very hard, but with good reps. But no pain, no gain is silly when you say it that way. It is more emotional that it describes the work ethic,
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but training clever with a good work ethic is the best thing.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah,
Love it. Love it.
you can say it that way.
Perfect. Yeah. So just man, thank you. Such great words, Lars. We're about to close up here, but anything else
Hmm.
that you might want to? Well, why don't we do this? If say somebody wanted to contact you, they say, man, this guy is amazing. I want to talk to him personally. I want him to train me. Is there a way that people can get in touch with
I
you, or you?
I think the easiest way is right now, because it's pretty good functioning, is Instagram. Yeah,
Instagram?
so
Mm-hmm.
Neuro Athletic Training, you
Mm-hmm.
find it, and also Lars Lienhard, you can find it. This is the easiest way to contact, I think. We post a lot of stuff, but I think it is the easiest way to do it with Instagram
All right.
right now. Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much. That's perfect. If you want to find out more about how to get in touch with Lars, again, his name is Lars Lienhard, and extraordinary guy, an author. Lars, thank you so much for joining us on Neurotrain. I'd love to have you again sometime. Your English was superb. Thank you again and again a million times. We'll say I'll be signing off for now. Lars, if you can stay on for another couple minutes, I just want to chat with you.